I have joining me now live via Skype from Abuja. He's the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. He's also the former DG of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, talking of Dr. Ikechukwu Chijoke. Thank you very much for your time.
To be a program.
Yes, the CBN, 253.5 million naira in grants now to researchers. Let's start on that note. What do you make of this move by the Apex Bank to strengthen local capacity?
This is still part of the intervention of central bank in all the spheres of our economy. And it became necessary for them to intervene in the health sector, at least to get started in this regard. It was a good thing that such grant was given to Nigerian researchers and, of course, researchers within the country, and, of course, to the health sector. That's part of why we say kudos to CBN. At least for now, it can encourage some levels of research in this country going forward. But my concern is that we don't have to wait for this kind of emergency for us to fund researches and medical researches in our various research institutes. We have many of them, and so we expect that we should always fund these research institutes and budget for them, and indeed have a very robust budget for research institutes in order for them to carry out researches to forestall this kind of emergency that we have seen. But for now, this is a good start.
Okay, Dr. Ikechukwu, let's now take it up from our health sector and what we witness in Nigeria following COVID-19, showing the lack of capacity. Now, how well do you see all of this impacting on the health infrastructure? We've seen coalitions like COVID coming together to support the private sector led to support government. But how well do you see all of this impacting the health infrastructure in Nigeria, coupled with the fact that even our budgetary allocation is not enough?
Of course, the situation we found ourselves when COVID-19 struck exposed this country so much to the extent that we saw ourselves as empty as we could see when that happened. Our health sector is been heavily underfunded. That's obviously we know. And of course, that is for the same reason why most of our highly privileged Nigerians travel outside the country to seek health care. It's very embarrassing. All the time we go there, every day, the doctors out there will be asking, what is really indeed wrong with your health system? Because many of you come to this country for health systems and health care. And so it's unfortunate that successive governments have not bothered to consider health care a priority to the extent that we'll fund it so well to be able to take care of the health situations of Nigerians. If we have a few health institutions in the country so good enough to handle most of the major cases we see, then we could say we are progressing. But today, Nigerians still continue to travel abroad, even at the risk of catching COVID outside the country. They still travel abroad to be able to solve their health issues. Otherwise, we don't have enough infrastructure. Whether we have good doctors, yes, we have qualified doctors who all they need is just some kinds of motivations that could come in the form of financial motivations and infrastructural motivations. And unfortunately, we don't have such infrastructure and we don't have such funding coming into healthcare.
Staying with healthcare, we also see a particular fund channeled towards revamping the pharmaceutical space. That's also very important. I think over 100 billion naira signed for, and some companies were actually picked, local countries were actually picked also to build capacity. Now, if you look at it all in all, the CBN continues to promote local production of all that we need as a nation, particularly with regards to our population, which they believe is a very big market. What's your assessment of the pharmaceutical space and the impact of this funding?
The pharmaceutical sector has been doing so well to actually provide necessary medication that have sustained this country for such a long time. But I can tell you also, paucity of funds has always been the bane of the growth of pharmaceutical industry. And we don't have too many players. And so what has happened is that it has given a lot of opportunity for many foreign companies to come into Nigeria and expand that particular sector. We have seen a lot of foreign companies in the manufacturing subsector of the pharmaceutical industry, and when we fund that sector well, of course, talking about funding, we don't also expect that government has to continue to do the funding all the time. It's a sector that is very viable and continue to be viable. So I also expect that financial institutions should consider them and fund them for long-term loan facilities, so that that industry can also grow and develop. I know that we have not done so much in the research area of pharmaceutical industry. We haven't done so much. We just continue to develop and produce what we already know. Otherwise, we expect that today we should be having a lot of drugs. Since we have tropical diseases like malaria and all the things that relate to us in the tropical climate, we expect that there should be today vaccines that can take care of malaria. Just like we hear there are vaccines in countries like Brazil for malaria. And so I don't know why we're not developing such vaccines in this place. I know that when our pharmaceutical companies take it very seriously to research in this area, we should be able to today have a good vaccine for our very common disease called malaria. That way we will see that we are developing. Today, we're not seeing any sort of developments coming from pharmaceutical industry.
Vaccine distribution is key. We've seen what's happened in Nigeria, and states have started taking delivery of the vaccines. Now, what next? Let's look at how this will kickstart and recharge this economy, because some say that with the vaccines in the country, a level of confidence is already been exhibited by Nigerians. What do you make of the vaccines availability and, for Nigerians, and what next with regards to the economy?
Yeah, first of all, also I can say kudos to the country for getting the vaccines in a timely manner. Now, the next thing we need to deal with is issues of logistics, the logistics of moving these vaccines to many remote areas. Recall that there are areas you have to access with only flying boats. There are areas we cannot even access because of the level of insecurity in these areas. There are areas that don't even have roads, access roads to. And human beings, Nigerians, live in these areas. And so those are the kind of logistics problems we are going to have. But the most important thing is that we have started, and I'm sure as we get to certain bridges, we'll be crossing them and we'll be solving the problems as we get there. So far, so good. So it's for the team to start working on the various logistics involved in reaching to all facets and all parts of Nigeria. And that is just the next challenge they have to have.
Now, let's wrap it up on this note. Many have said that, or many assume, or they suggested that the central bank seems to be overwhelmed, that a lot is being done by the Apex Bank, and there needs to be more support from the fiscal side. Do you share this sentiment?
Yeah, the fiscal side has some limitations, obviously. Now, for the fiscal side to do more, two things will have to happen. There has to be an increase in the drive for taxation or taxes that we receive, or there has to be some more efficiency in that area, or they go and borrow more. And each time the country goes to borrow, Nigerians shout to say, we're still going to borrow more and more. And so that is why it is more feasible for the central bank, from the monetary policy side, to be able to intervene more, because there are too many ways and means they can use to be able to intervene. For the fiscal end to intervene, like I said, they will need to do certain things which obviously may hurt the system and the economy. So that is why we're having more of the intervention coming from CBN. But having said this, we want a situation where the country will have it all planned out, so that we won't have too many interventions coming from CBN. CBN has intervened in all sectors. And one would wonder what capacity they even have to intervene in all the various sectors. And I can tell you, so far, they have done well. So doing more than what they're doing right now will mean that we need to have a master plan for the country for the long run, so that instead of intervening, we have the system generating its own solutions as being set out to do, so that interventions will not be the solution. The system will just solve its own problem. That's what we expect going forward.
It's a good way to live it. Thanks for coming through for us. I'm Managing Director, CEO, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Louis. My pleasure always.